Lastly, to provide physical and emotional support for each other. And this is one that sometimes we forget. The physical part we remember, but sometimes this emotional support is that it's very easy to forget. There was actually a study done in, I think it was Psychology Today, where they talked about one of the biggest costs that a man pays in American society is by the time he is age of 35 or age of 40 is loneliness. He has no friends. So by the time he is 40, he's put up all of these emotional walls and he has no friends, and he invests everything. If he's married, he invests all of that into his wife. He invests all of this emotional power, all of this emotional channeling, he invested into her, while women, they don't have this issue. And the women are always social. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them as such. But because of societal push and because of how things have happened with us and how men are expected to be, we don't have those same emotional platonic connections with other men. So we invest all of that emotional channeling into our women, and with that, even with our spouses, we put up walls because there are certain parts we don't want to expose them because we feel like we will become vulnerable and we will be weaker in front of them. And this is something that is very important to understand, because everybody needs a channel. Everyone needs an emotional outlet. If we're sad, we have to be able to express that. Even the Prophet ﷺ, he expressed sadness, he expressed happiness, he expressed anger. All of these emotions are completely jaized, completely acceptable. It's not possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give us something natural that is within us in order for us to suppress it. It's just a ticking time bomb. So, how do we benefit from a marriage? Well, the first and most important thing is that each spouse understands his or her rights. So a husband needs to understand his right on his spouse, and the spouse needs to understand her right on her husband. And we also need to understand that even though these rights are something that all of us know, right? So if the right of the husband is that she be available to him for intimacy. This is one right that we all know. The right of the spouse on the husband is that he provide for her financially. He is the one who's supposed to give financial support to the marriage. And there can be exceptions to this depending on how the dynamic is set up. But in general, these are the basic Islamic rights that these two individuals have. So my question here, and I always like asking this follow-up question. If a woman agreed to be a housewife, and every time the man came home, she said, okay, I'm available to you, but I'm not going to cook, I'm not going to clean, I'm not going to take care of the house, but I'm going to be available to you whenever you want. And the man, in response, he says to her, okay, I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to clothe you, and I'm going to feed you, I'm going to provide you, but I'm not going to talk to you unless there's something that's an absolute need to speak with you. How long will this marriage last?
Maybe a long time.
Huh?
Maybe
A very long time, right? in general, and we'll talk to Noor's wife. We'll give her a survey, inshallah. This marriage won't last. In general, this marriage won't last. And this is the role of culture. This is where culture plays a role. Islam came to set those base values and the base understanding that needs to be there, but it also allowed to have these extra cultural values that need to be taken into consideration. So those cultural values can vary from place to place, they can vary from time to time, they can vary from culture to culture, and they can vary from family to family. So within families, even from the same subculture, you'll find that they do things differently in their home. And that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but there needs to be an understanding there. And some of these understandings and a lot of the premarital counseling sessions that I have with people who are looking to get married, it's become to a point where both potential husband and wife, they're not able to express what it is that they want. So when I asked the husband, I was like, do you want your wife to work? He's like, yeah, women can work, it's fine. I was like, listen, I'm not putting you on trial. I'm asking you what your opinion is. What is it that you feel? What is it that you want? Because you're allowed to have wants in a marriage. She can agree to them or she can disagree to them. There's nothing wrong with that. But you need to figure out what it is that you want. How do you want to define this marriage? What do you feel will make it successful? And unfortunately, this is a problem a lot of our youth have. They're so scared of challenging the status quo. They're so scared of challenging this idea of modernity and femininity that they haven't developed an opinion themselves. But at the end of the day, the marriage is an agreement between two people, yes or no? It's an agreement that two people enter to. When one side disagrees, people don't get married. And it's better that the marriage end before it started than after it starts. This is a bigger challenge and this is a bigger problem. Is it worse that you break off an engagement, or is it worse that two individuals get divorced? Many times there are children, many times there's emotional baggage, many times families get involved, and it can become very, very messy. Yes?
But your opinions and your thoughts can change after marriage.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But there are certain base understandings like, do you want your wife to be a housewife? And this is something, for me, I'll share my personal experience. When I got married, this is one of the things that, my wife was working at the time when we got married, and I said, listen, I'm looking for a housewife, and I don't want somebody, who works. I want somebody to be home, and I want somebody to take care of the kids, and I will provide financially. So she agreed, and we got married. After my kids got older, I changed my mind. She was like, hey, what do you think about me working now? I said, yeah, I think now it's okay, the kids are older, there's no need for you to be home. And if you want to go out and work, I don't have an issue with that. So opinions can change, but there has to be a base understanding to the marriage too, right? It's not like, okay, do you like green? No, I don't. Okay, khalas, I don't think this is going to work. It has to be something very fundamental in outlook, not something that is just completely opinion-based. Saying that, it's okay for anybody to have preference, okay? It's completely okay for anybody to have the preference, whether you agree or disagree. A lot of those things can be worked out, because the reality is you're not going to find 100% compatibility with anybody. If you have two humans in a room, two human beings, whoever they are, there's going to be some kind of disagreement. It's very natural. But do we want those people to be on at least a 70, 80% type of agreement, and then 20% room to work out and to meet each other and to complement each other? Yeah, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you find out you're sitting with this person and okay, well, we only have only compatible in 10 to 20%, there's very little chance that the marriage will actually work. But like I said, it's very important to find out these things before an individual gets married, instead of these things being dumped on both of them after they get married. Saying that, can two opposite people completely, work it out and figure it out? Yeah. I mean, there are situations where that does happen. And again, this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls marriage an ayah. This is why He calls it a sign. Because there are certain situations, and I've seen them, where you're like, I have no idea how this marriage is working. Really, I have no idea. And both of them are happy. And then you have situations where people are miserable too, a long time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says about the individual who is the best, He says, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِ وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِ. He said, the best of you is the one that is best to his wives. And this example is very telling. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't say here, the best of you is the one who is best to his friends. He didn't say the best of you is the one who is best to his congregation. He didn't say the best of you is the one who is best at his work or the most fair in his business. He said the best of you is the one who is best to his wife. What is significant about that? What is unique about that? What is different between a spousal relationship than a relationship with friends? Or is everybody shy to share? Other than the intimacy. Obviously the intimacy is one aspect of it.
Trust.
Trust. That's definitely good.
Transparency.
I'm sorry?
Transparency.
There's more transparency in a marriage between spouses than there is between friends. Because I know situations where the husband was abusive, like physically abusive toward his wife. And if you ask anybody in the community about this individual, what would they say? He's a great guy. He's a wonderful guy. He's so generous, and he takes us out and we hang out together and we have a great time when we're together. I would never have imagined. So not only is the transparency an issue, our wives, they see us at our low points, right? They see us when we wake up and our hair is all messed up. They'll see us if we take too long in the bathroom, right? They'll see all of these private, intimate moments that other people are not exposed to. And it's very easy for a man, because in general, the man is given the position of authority in a marriage structure. In general, Islamically, it's very patriarchal in that sense, in that the man is the one that has the role of responsibility in the house. So it's very easy for him to abuse that power. And it's very easy for him to look down on his wife. It's very easy for him to take advantage of her. It's very easy for him to impress his rights upon her. And because of that, there are many men who will take advantage of that situation. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ said what? He says, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِيَا. He said, the best of you is the one that is best to his wives. Because this is the most private, the most transparent, and the relationship where you will see each other at each other's looks. And my wife, she reminds me all the time, she's like, I can't come to your khutbahs, and I can't come to your talks. I said, why is that? She's like, man, I'll be throwing tomatoes from the back. She's like, the stuff you talk about, it's not the same as what I see as home. So I said, listen, I'm a great Muslim theoretically, but we all have shortcomings in reality. So we do the best that we can, and we try the best that we can, and with our wives, it's something that's very important, because again, it's a very private relationship. It's a very private relationship, and there are things that you will see from each other that nobody else in the world will see. And there's a reason for that. And there's a reason for that, inshallah, we'll talk about that. And this ayah is one of my favorite ayat concerning marriage. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنَّ. That your wives are a covering for you, and you husbands are a covering for your wives. And this metaphor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses in a covering, in a garment, is something that's very beautiful. Because what are some uses that we have for a garment? In this weather, why do we dress the way we do? Because we're using it to protect ourselves from the element. Some of us have scars. Some of us have scars, so what do? Sometimes we'll wear long sleeves, or we'll wear a type of clothing that will hide those scars and hide those defects. Some of us wear clothes because we want to beautify ourselves and we want to look nice when we go out in public. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes what? Marriage. He describes it as a libas. And for all of these three reasons, to hide our defects, to protect each other, to beautify each other. And if someone comes and says anything about my wife, I should be the first one to stand. And this is a problem that we have not necessarily between individuals, but between the dynamic of the in-laws and the wife. Right? This is a big problem. That many times the in-laws will start attacking the wife, and the husband in the middle, he's not sure where to stand because, okay, well, these are my parents, and this is my wife. What am I supposed to do? La. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made you her protector. While they can say and do whatever they want to you as the son, you can't allow them to oppress your wife. That's not fair. You are her libas. And if you don't stand for her, if you don't speak up for her, then who's going to defend her? Who's going to stand up for her? And this is something that we need to understand when it comes to marriage, that it is the husband that is the fulcrum of that relationship. The husband is the fulcrum of the relationship between the in-laws and the wife. So if there's too much weight on this side, well, he needs to move this way to balance it like that. And if there's too much weight toward his wife, he needs to move this way so he can balance it like that. But most relationships that I have dealt with, that there are problems between the in-laws and the wife, it's because the husband doesn't know how to balance it. And this is something that's very important. The role of the husband in this relationship is very critical. So we need to understand what our roles are as husbands, and we need to understand what are the dynamic of the relationship. And the same thing with the wife. Many times in front of her friends, they'll sit down and they'll start bad-mouthing their husbands. This is not permissible. You are supposed to hide the faults of your husband. You're supposed to protect your husband. And there's a difference, ya ikhwan, between hiding faults and in hiding things that are harmful and oppressive. Hiding a fault, maybe he didn't wake up for Fajr one day, he didn't go for Jama'ah, maybe he lied to somebody. Right? These one-time or one-off things are different. These are things that you hide. But I can't use this if my husband is beating me, if he's abusing me, then at this point, this is not something, I don't say, oh, okay, I was trying to hide his faults. No, this is not a fault. This is oppression. And this oppression is not something that should be hidden. So we should always help one another, and we should always excuse one another, and we should always try to take care of one another. So the next section that I wanted to discuss was reconciliation. Well, there are going to be problems, and we've established that. Regardless of the dynamic of the relationship, there are going to be problems between the husband and the wife. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us? What does He tell us and how to reconcile that relationship? He says, الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم فالصالحات قانتات حافظات للغيب بما حفظ الله واللاتي تخافون نشوزهن فعظوهن واهجروهن في المضاجع واضربوهن فإن أطعناكم فلا تبغوا عليهن سبيلا إن الله كان عليا كبيرا. The husband should take good care of their wives with the bounties Allah has given to some more than others and with what they spend out of their own money. Righteous wives are devout and guard what Allah would have them guard in their husband's absence. If you fear high-handedness from your wives, remind them of the teachings of Allah. Then ignore them when you go to bed, then hit them. And this ayah is very clear. If they obey you, you have no right to act against them. Allah is most high and great. And this becomes a little problematic in our modern context, in our modern understanding of the verse. And even classically, is this something that we need to go back and we need to look at and we need to analyze, like what is the intention behind it? How do we put this in context?